here to put it out.
Yeah, it's a good point.
There you go.
Thank you, Dusty. I love you. I
okay,
appreciate
we love you, Brian.
Thank you.
We love you.
All right, Leland Vittert starts right now. Leland, hey, Leland.
Happy birthday, buddy.
Yeah, you're already 40, so you know.
Oh yeah, yeah. That was just a few years ago. If you need any advice, give me a call. It's
I will.
Good to see you.
You know I will.
Great.
Thanks.
Yeah, for sure. Great show. We begin tonight with breaking news. Police in Tallahassee, Florida, say the suspect in a school shooting at a Florida State University campus is the son of a sheriff's deputy, and they believe he used that deputy's former duty weapon in the attack. The judge in the Parkland school shooting trial, Florida judge who has a lot of experience with school shootings, tells us if the suspect's mother will face charges because it was her weapon. But first tonight, Democrats, their friends in the media, and a lot of non-Trump Republicans keep thinking over and over again that they finally have a winning hand against Donald Trump. They don't right now. But they say this, whatever the Washington scandal du jour is, will be the moment. They say this is going to be the moment that America turns against Trump. No. That's our Why It Matters segment tonight. If there's one thing you need to see tonight, is this clip of Alaska's Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski talking about how Republicans view Trump.
We are all afraid. Okay. It's quite a statement. I'm oftentimes very anxious myself about using my voice because retaliation is real.
She went on to say it's real and that's not right. Some are treating those comments from Murkowski as a watershed moment. All of a sudden, this illuminates some huge problem inside the Republican Party. It is not a watershed moment. No Republican in Congress is leaving Trump. Presidents use fear over their party all the time. Nancy Pelosi was the hammer. She was the head of the fear department. This is nothing new. In fact, it's the exact same thing DNC Vice Chair David Hogg is doing on the Democratic side. He's stirring the pot, threatening to replace older members of the party with new blood.
Because it's not just a matter of age, it is a matter of effectiveness. People say, well, David, is this just out with the old and in with the new? I would say no. This is out with the ineffective and in with the effective, because we need members who are ready to meet this moment to fight back against Donald Trump.
It's no different than Donald Trump saying out with the rhinos and in with MAGA. No different. But for some reason, when a Republican talks about it, it's totally different. Here's how James Carville, Democratic thought leader, the mastermind of Bill Clinton's 1992 campaign, responded on Cuomo.
He's being paid to run against other Democrats. I think it's an outrage. I don't know if I have standing, but I might give the DNC $10 and sue him. He's a contemptible little twerp, if you ask me.
Reasonable people can discuss the twerp description. But in politics, it is far better to be feared than liked. When Democrats spend all of their time and energy fighting each other, chalk that one up as a win for the Republicans. And lately, it seems like every week there's a new story that Democrats truly believe will create a rift among Republicans, that somehow this moral majority of Republicans is going to take over and bring down Donald Trump. It never happens. The fact that one Trump squishy Republican is scared of Trump is proof of Trump's winning, not his weakness. There's a constant hope among the non-MAGA crowd that a majority of the country will wake up one day and finally turn against Donald Trump. It started with Trump saying John McCain isn't a war hero. That was 10 years ago. And it's important to remember what Trump said back then.
He's not a war hero.
He's a war hero.
He's a war hero.
5.5 years.
He's a war hero because he was captured. I like people that weren't captured, okay? I hate to tell you.
And remember, that didn't end Trump's political career. Neither have 1,000 scandals. And remember, Donald Trump said this, right? He said, I could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and not lose a vote. He's right about that. But if there's one thing that could finally put Trump on the ropes, it's the economy. And there is new information tonight that he knows it. We begin tonight with Mark Halperin, host of Two Way, former longtime political director at ABC News, author of Game Change and Double Down, which is what drew me into political reporting. And I want to start with that, Mark, because of your long, deep knowledge of politics and the coverage of it, 30 plus years in terms of experience. Have you ever seen a president with such a stranglehold on his party?
No, there's never been anyone who's had this stranglehold, and it derives from the fact that we haven't seen too many presidents in the modern American history who've led movements. And one of the things I tell my friends who don't like Donald Trump at all is you have to understand he's leading a movement. You may not agree with him, you may not like him, but that is a special political power. And what gives him this power, many things, but the most sort of hardball and top of mind for so many of these Republicans is if Donald Trump endorses someone in a Republican primary, they're almost certain to win. And that means that he can get them kicked out of their jobs if he chooses to. And they're all very well aware of it.
The message we are hearing is that as members of Congress go home, which they are, for the 2-week recess around Easter, because members of Congress don't exactly spend a lot of time in Washington. It's a good gig. Much is being made about the reception they are getting at their town halls. Take a listen.
They don't ask you to make gang tattoos.
Trump's not obeying the Supreme Court. He just ignores them.
What are you going to do about it? These people have been sentenced to life imprisonment in a foreign country with no due process.
How about the KKK?
All inside the interior of the United States.
This is a terror group going after black and
You
brown.
can head out. The protest is outside. Thank you very much. Protest is outside.
This is being made out to be some sort of watershed change in America and a turn against Trump. I don't quite see it that way.
Well, the sample space is small. First of all, I say this about town halls involving protests or fierce questions from either side. You never know, right? You need to know, who are those people? Why are they there? There's no doubt, if you look at the crowd size that Bernie Sanders and AOC are drawing, that there is energy on the left. There is anger at Congress, members of both parties. But the question is, to what end? It's an expression of unhappiness on the part of tens of millions of Americans. But there are tens of millions of Americans who are pretty happy with the way Donald Trump is trying to shake things up. So there's no election around the corner. We should pay attention to what people are unhappy about. But will it slow down the reconciliation bill that the Republicans are trying to pass? Will it slow down Donald Trump's march on Doge or anything else? I don't think so. But attention must be paid. Tens of millions of people are unhappy. Tens of millions are not.
There is now sort of news of a split inside the Republican Party a little bit. Republicans warn Johnson over Medicaid. Dozens swing district and centrist House Republicans are warning Speaker Mike Johnson they won't vote for a budget reconciliation package that cuts Medicaid too deeply. There is another part of House Republicans that are talking about raising taxes on the rich. The Republican Party has wildly changed its values to align with Donald Trump. The Heritage Foundation, Club for Growth, these really conservative organizations have now become divisions of MAGA Inc. by abandoning their principles. Can Donald Trump sort of drive this ship wherever he wants it to go?
Well, I think there's distractions, even if they're undergirded by important constitutional or policy issues. And then there's what I call big casino, the issues that will define what America's like in a broad way, and which will define Donald Trump's legacy. And one of those is questions of taxes and spending. If you took every Republican who said, I won't vote for X or I won't vote for Y, they can't pass this bill. But what they're going to do is what they've been doing, which is to say, there's more that unites us than divides us. And if we don't pass the president's major spending bill and tax cut bill, the country and the party will both be ruined. So it's I think important not to get caught up in the day-to-day threats of certain members or certain factions to say this is a bottom line, because currently there are bottom lines out there that are not reconcilable. But I believe in the end, before too long, not in the end, before too long, you'll see 85 to 95% of Republicans on board, and then they'll have to herd those final group of cats. But it's not nearly as dire as those bottom line ultimatums might make it seem.
That makes perfect sense. An unstoppable force is time. The immovable object is the midterms next year. And Donald Trump is now talking about when a timeline for his big deals on tariffs, even with China, before the middle of summer. Take a listen.
Do you want to talk directly to President Xi?
I don't want to say that. It's just not appropriate. I think we have a lot of time. I think we have plenty of time. I would think over the next 3 or 4 weeks, I think maybe the whole thing could be concluded.
Is he getting, and I said this in my open, a little bit nervous about the economy, even if he doesn't want to say it?
I think his team is a little bit nervous, and in some cases, a lot more than a little bit nervous. It's extraordinary the degree to which people in finance, some members of Congress of both parties, some foreign leaders, some experienced economists who aren't partisan, believe the die is already cast, that he's actually destroyed the American economy and seriously hurt the world economy. So they can't escape that sound. You and I hear it every day. Our inbox is filled, our Twitter feeds filled with serious people making statements that seem extraordinary on one level. So there is concern. They do hope that some of the other things coming up as they manage the tariff process, they strike some of these bilateral deals, they pass the tax and spending cut bill, they do DOGE in a way that inspires people to believe in the economy, they maybe make peace deals with Iran, with in Ukraine, with Ukraine and Russia, with the Middle East. They're trying to do other big things that will be countervailing to whatever drag the tariffs are causing. And of course, again, if they do strike a bunch of bilateral deals, that will get not just the markets excited and calmed, but the real world economy can move to a better place. So I judge them by their results, not by the president's often contradictory rhetoric. And we'll see where we are by Christmas. The midterms are more than a year away. And I think it's tempting to make that this where you put your stopwatch. But I think more about where are we at Christmas of this year, where there's plenty the president can accomplish that would be positive for the American economy.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right, as you normally are.
It happens sometimes.
Yes, to say that the point of judgment is much sooner than the midterms. And that gets me to my final point here, which is that you have been able to look out and sort of see the world as it is, which few political reporters have. But the enormous power of Donald Trump comes from winning. It comes from his stranglehold on the Republican Party and on working class voters. Maybe it happens the other way around. Especially a place like Iowa, we are now seeing Democrats come up with that same Donald Trump-esque populist working class message. Here's a Democrat who just threw his hat in to run against Joni Ernst for the Senate. Take a listen.
Only 2% of Congress come from the working class. We built the damn table. It's time we had a seat at it. I'm fighting for a Democratic Party that people like me will actually want to be a part of. People like my dad, myself, my kids, all the people like us. The DC elites, the ruling class, they don't want me, but I think maybe you will.
Can Trump's message be stolen?
I think that video, as compelling as it is as a piece of poetry, speaks to why it's going to be challenging for people like that to steal his message. You didn't hear a single specific policy idea. Now, Donald Trump is not the most rigorous person ever to run for president or be president on policy, but he had specific ideas about things he wanted to do. I didn't hear that guy say anything specific. So it's easy to say we're populists, we're outsiders, Washington's horrible. But then you got to say some specific things you would do that's different. And I think it's one of the big missing pieces for all the wings of the Democratic Party now. What are they for that's popular? Trump is for saying some things like the tariffs that are not universally popular, but he's for a lot of popular stuff. And populist is great. You also have to be, as we say, popular.
Lesson in grammar as well. Mark, it's always good to see you. Thank you, my friend. We'll check you out on two-way in the morning meeting.
Thanks for having me on, buddy.
Tomorrow
Good to
morning.
see you.
Yeah, you too. We first wrote about this in War Notes. That's your chance for an inside look at the show every day. It is free. warnotes.com to subscribe, and you'll be delighted, smarter, and the envy of all of your friends when you get it in your email at 7:05 p.m. It is the same common sense, unflinching analysis we deliver every day on the show. Go to warnotes.com, subscribe for free. You can respond to the email. We read them all. And also see you on social media at Leland Vittert. When we come back, breaking news. Senator Chris Van Hollen actually met with the migrant thrown into an El Salvadorian prison. How El Salvador has become the new be-seen destination for Democrats. Will it work?
While I may be the first senator and first member of the United States Congress to come here to El Salvador in this case, I certainly will not be the last.
Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen just met with Kilmar Abrego Garcia in El Salvador. Drastic turn of events, considering the senator was shut down almost immediately upon arrival. Garcia has been at the center of rallying cries from Democrats looking to hit Trump on immigration policy. Here is Van Hollen earlier.
So I will keep at this, but I can assure you that while I may be the first senator and first member of the United States Congress to come here to El Salvador in this case, I certainly will not be the last. There'll be many more coming.
All right, he's not wrong. It's also been reported that New Jersey Senator Cory Booker is planning on making the trip soon. Once again, showing Democrats spending a lot of political time and capital on the wrong side of issues like immigration.
Back in 2016, just 38% of voters wanted the government to try to deport all 11 million undocumented immigrants. Compared to where we are in 2025, 56%, the majority. The American people have come a long way on this issue, much closer to Donald Trump.
With us now, Mark Short, former chief of staff to Vice President Mike Pence, Julian Epstein, Democratic strategist, former chief counsel for the House Judiciary Committee. Gents, good to see both of you. Thank you. Mark, start with you on the breaking news. It is clear that the president of El Salvador views himself, I think he would like to be the 51st state, and the governor of the 51st state. Does Van Hollen meet with Abrego Garcia without Trump's approval?
I don't know, but I think that probably the Trump administration welcomes seeing Van Hollen meet with them. I think it continues to push the message that where I think Democrats are is wanting to embrace somebody who came here illegally, was a wife beater, and went through multiple rounds of adjudication before he was dismissed from our country. So I take issue with the Trump administration willfully distancing themselves from judicial rulings. I think it's a mistake on their part. But on the politics, Leland, I think the politics play well for Republicans, and Democrats seem like they want to continue to embrace this position on immigration. And meanwhile, the other big issue they seem to be fighting on is getting more federal funding from taxpayers to go to Harvard that has a $53 billion endowment and was hurting Jewish students on their campuses.
Julian, I've continued to see in my social media feed Republicans gleefully sending out the clips of Chris Van Hollen down in El Salvador. Long term, I get they want this in the news because they think it's bad for Trump, but long term, is this the picture Democrats want?
No. And I've been on this network for the better part of a year and a half arguing that immigration was going to kill the Democrats in 2024, that it was an 80-20 issue, that people did not like the Biden policies. Overwhelmingly, most Democrats didn't like the Biden policies. And why Democrats now want to make the headlines, the poster child of their position, a deportable alien is beyond me on the politics. So I don't really get what the Democrats are doing. At the same time, I don't really understand what Trump is doing. This is Abrego Garcia is someone they could bring back into the country right now and deport tomorrow.
Right.
There's a perfectly valid deportation order, just not to El Salvador. And there are at least 4 courts that are involved now, including the Supreme Court, that unanimously said, try to bring this guy back and do it the legal way. You've got criminal contempt proceedings underway right now. When Trump has so much credit on immigration, he's shut down the borders, people are behind him on deportation, why do they want to pick the one case where the courts are all saying he's doing it illegally? So I don't get the Democratic idea that let's die on this hill. I don't get the Republican approach of why do we pick a really bad case to...
No, it's the case. I mean, my argument, and from what my sources are telling me, is because it's the case they have, and it lets them talk about immigration.
They've got 12 million cases.
Yeah, it lets them talk about immigration right now and make Democrats have pictures.
Well, they're baiting the Democrats,
yeah, so
and this is their
second
sirens. House
Democrat who spoke anonymously to Axios, a centrist, called the deportation issue a soup du jour, arguing Trump is setting a trap for Democrats, and like usual, we're falling for it. Mark, there's, I think, often a willingness by Democrats and Democratic friends in the media to way underestimate the shrewdness of Donald Trump and his ability to produce, for lack of a better terms, moments like this.
He's great at the production. He's great at knowing what sells on TV.
And knowing what his enemies are going to do?
I think it's more just understanding the moment and understanding what, drives ratings and understanding where he wants to have a divide. I think he loves having a foil, and I think often Democrats have played that foil for him. And I think that, left to his own devices right now, I think there's a lot of troubling issues on the economy, on his trade policy. But as long as Democrats are pushing the narrative on immigration, he's going to lean into it.
All right, so this was Trump today in the Oval Office asked about this case.
If a court holds you in contempt, will you take steps to return Kilmar Abrego Garcia to the United States and put him in front of a judge?
Well, I'm not involved in it. I'm going to respond by saying you'll have to speak to the lawyers, the DOJ. I've heard many things about him, and we'll have to find out what the truth is.
Can you decode Trump speak for us?
Oh, I don't know if I can decode Trump's speech. I think probably what he's doing right there is, there's a couple days ago where he was basically suggesting we should send American citizens to El Salvador, and now he's saying, I don't know anything about this, it's not mine. So I think where Julian started this conversation, I think is honestly where the president gets to, is basically bringing him back and deporting him to another country. But I think for right now, it's playing well, so he's going to let the string run out on it.
He's hedging. I mean, this is right, your previous comment. This is a trap that the Democrats are falling for, but it's not the most clever trap, because I guarantee if you start looking at the poll numbers, while most Americans like the idea of deporting illegals, particularly criminal illegals, they want to do it legally, and they want to follow the courts.
Do they really? I mean, I hear that. Do Democrats, does your average voter really make that distinction and then go, well, now that it comes out that the guy allegedly beat his wife, then he got arrested on suspicion of human trafficking. He was wearing what was effectively considered gang clothing. Everybody goes, nah.
When you hear the Supreme Court saying that they did it illegally, that matters with some. So what you're doing, Leland, is you're taking an 80-20 issue and you're making it a 50-50 issue. Why take an 80-20 issue and convert it to something that is going to break down on partisan lines when you have 80% of the public supporting you? That's why I think this is, while it's a trap, while it distracts the public from things like tariffs, other things that are starting to go south on Donald Trump, it has a short shelf life, because I think it clouds the message that Trump has been very successful on.
I'm marking the tape on short shelf life, because I think we're going to be talking about this for
he's hedging. You notice he's hedging. He's saying something very different from what he said 2 days ago.
I agree with you there. But then smart guys, and I'm trying to figure out the calculus. I've asked so many Democrats this, nobody can explain it to me. Cory Booker, not a dumb guy, senator from New Jersey. He has no relationship with this case. He's flying down to El Salvador in the way that senators who wanted to run for president used to fly to Israel to try to, shore up their foreign policy creds. Why do Democrats think this is a winning issue?
The same reason they take bad positions on things like men playing in women's sports, on critical race, on a whole host of issues, social issues, on crime, because we are living in an age where politicians are starting to become like OnlyFans models. They are more interested, the political equivalent of OnlyFans models. What these politicians are interested in is raising money and catering to a very small set of people online, the activist community who are online, who are not representative of voters. And this is a way people start running campaigns for president. This is a way people raise money. This is a way people achieve greater social credit scores amongst the bubbled left. And it's a phenomenon that occurs on the right as well.
Oh, for sure.
But this is the explanation for it is this is the culture, the political culture of the social media age.
You have a lot more performance artists in Congress today than we used to.
And on OnlyFans, evidently. It's not a site I frequent.
It's also because it's what the media is covering. So they're politicians. They're going to follow it because that's what you guys are covering.
So you see, now you guys agree on blaming me.
It's what they call.
No, I'm not blaming you. They shouldn't be
following it. It's what they call
edgelords.
It's edgelording is what it is. So it's to be as extreme as possible.
The OnlyFans metaphor was better. Good to see him. Mark Short, Julian Epstein there. The media, speaking of doing a disservice, is doing to Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Senator Bernie Sanders. They are doing the exact same thing to them they did to Donald Trump back in 2016. Back then, they ignored Trump's crowd sizes and said he was far too radical to be elected. Trust me, I was there. I covered him. So we're going to go back to 2015 and 2016, when every pundit on television said Donald Trump could never win an election by saying build a wall.
His numbers are already falling in Iowa. They will fall in New Hampshire. I don't see him as a serious candidate.
I think this is going to be really the beginning of the end of Donald Trump.
And some analysts say it may signal the beginning of the end of the summer of Trump.
I'll leave it to you to speculate on how this whole race is going to go. I continue to believe Mr. Trump will not be president.
And now the media and Democrats are doing the same thing to AOC. They are underestimating the anger held by so many Americans. The media right now is telling you that AOC isn't a serious candidate for 2028. And that's because much of the American media is dominated by the establishment Democrats. Pollster Frank Luntz, on those who would think AOC could succeed in a 2028 presidential campaign, said, if you think Kamala Harris had a lot of baggage from her past pandering statements, wait till you see candidate AOC. And AOC may be a socialist. Donald Trump was also told and said to be a lot of things back in 2016 that didn't disqualify him because he led a movement. That movement that he led was more important than who he was. That movement captured an emotion. And still, folks like James Carville don't get it.
AOC and her kind and this guy, David Hall, they want to run against other Democrats.
Yeah.
They don't run against Republicans. When you beat a Republican, come back and see me and I will be impressed. I mean, it's fine. They draw big crowds. They draw everything. That's great. But all they want to do, and all this guy Hall wants to do, is they want to beat, like Democrats are not the problem right now.
That's the exact same argument that was used during the 2016 Republican presidential primary. Oh, Republicans should stop beating up on each other. Donald Trump should get out of the way so Jeb Bush can come in. And it was Donald Trump with the huge crowds. He was getting huge crowds in some Democratic states, just like Sanders and Ocasio-Cortez are getting big crowds in states that Trump won. And it's working. A Yale University survey shows AOC is right behind Harris in a survey of who Democrats support in the 2028 election. That right there is stunning. That's not to say she will be the nominee, but be very careful when the establishment, especially the establishment, relatively liberal media, tells you that she can't win. Police say the suspected Florida state shooter is the son of a deputy sheriff. He allegedly used his mother's weapon to murder 2 and injure 6. Will his cop mother be held responsible and charged? Tallahassee, 2 people were killed, 6 more injured after a gunman opened fire on campus. Police say the shooter is 20-year-old Phoenix Eicher. He is the son of a Leon County Sheriff's deputy. Her name is Jessica Eicher, who's been with the department for over 18 years.
Unfortunately, her son had access to one of her weapons, and that was one of the weapons that was found at the scene. The alleged shooter was also a long-standing member of the Leland County Sheriff's Office Citizen Advisory or Youth Advisory Council. So he has been steeped in the Leland County Sheriff's Office family, engaged in a number of training programs that we have. So it's not a surprise to us that he had access to weapons.
With us now, retired Judge Elizabeth Scherer. She was the judge in the Parkland school shooting trial, now Florida-based attorney, with Conrad Scherer, an FSU alum as well. The first thing I heard, and I probably think everybody else did and thought when they heard the mother's weapon and she is a police officer, is she going to get charged?
You know, I think it's too early to tell. Obviously, it's an ongoing, pending criminal investigation, so the details that the police are sharing right now are very limited, and they likely won't share those details until their criminal investigation is at least, you know, near the conclusion. I think it will depend on a lot of factors. You know, there are reports that her son was engaging in certain behavior, joining certain groups on campus that where he was kicked out of because he was portraying white supremacist beliefs, again, allegedly, and that he was displaying sort of erratic a system of beliefs, and there are those types of reports. So I think it's going to depend on what the mother knew, how much she knew, whether or not she knew he was dangerous, where exactly that weapon was left, whether or not he had given any indication as to whether or not he was dangerous, whether he planned on using it, and so on and so forth. I also think in this case it makes a big difference that the shooter was 20 years old, as opposed to cases that we've seen in Michigan and Georgia where the shooters are underage and the parents are providing weapons, whether
Why does that make it
inadvertently
different?
or directly. Well, I think that as a parent, you're responsible for your child, and you have a bigger responsibility to take part and protect the community from your child's behavior, whereas
So the famous
when you have
case,
an adult,
right? The famous case is the Crumbly case in Michigan. I think he was a fourth grader,
correct,
right? And the parents were
Yes.
charged. It was very clear that they
Yes.
should have done something. Does Florida have the same
Yes.
kind of laws?
Well, to tell you the truth, I think that in the Crumbly case and the case in Georgia where the parents are charged, I think that those are novel cases. I think it's a trend where parents are being charged because the American people are getting sick of these shootings, and maybe perhaps the thought is if you hold the parents accountable, that they'll stop being so negligent and reckless with their firearms and with purchasing firearms for their kids. But in those two cases, the parents were clearly complicit as far as knowing all of the signs, even knowing that the child had threatened to shoot up the school, drew pictures of shooting up the school,
Right.
and the parents just basically ignored it. So I think that in those cases, there was no specific law on point, but they could charge manslaughter because the parents were complicit in the behavior.
You know, Judge, I appreciate you being here. Thank you. You bring both expertise, but also, I think, some gravitas and understanding to this that is difficult to find. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say the person who I feel for among many tonight is that mom, that sheriff's deputy. And you can't imagine, I think, what is going on in her head. Judge, thank you. We appreciate your time.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yes, ma'am. Soda has become the GOP's new target as they try to ban it from food stamp programs. But do Republicans really want to be the party that tells Americans they can't drink Coke? Soon, Republicans are going to have to decide if they want to tell lower-income Americans they can't have Coke. It is a wild battle playing out right now. RFK Jr. wants to take soda out of SNAP benefits, otherwise known as food stamps. He keeps hammering home on this. He has not changed. The governor of Indiana is right there with him.
More SNAP money is spent on sugar drinks and candy
than on fruits and vegetables. That changes today.
We want to do a number of things, but not take away choice from people. The one place that I would say that we need to really change policies is in the SNAP program and food stamps and in school lunches, because there the federal government in many cases is paying for it, and we shouldn't be subsidizing people to eat poison.
23% of SNAP benefits go to soda, snacks, candy, and desserts. That is billions of dollars a year, and obesity rates are the highest among Americans who use SNAP benefits. 39% of participants are obese. Big Soda is fighting back. The American Beverage Association, here they go. Quote, restricting SNAP purchases or banning safe ingredients won't make anyone healthier. They only create headlines. Rather, they're punitive policies that leverage fear-mongering and misinformation while taking decisions away from Hoosiers, that was for Indiana's event, and giving them to the government. With us now, Dr. Ben Carson, renowned neurosurgeon, who's long advocated for healthier eating, also the former Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, former Republican presidential candidate. It's good to see you, sir. Welcome back to the program.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I want to get to the science in a minute, because I think this is important and it's a conversation people care about. But from a political standpoint, do Republicans want to be the party that takes Coca-Cola and Hershey bars away from lower income Americans?
Admittedly, it's not a good political strategy. However, I think the MAHA movement is real. And there's no question a third of children in our country have some type of chronic illness. A lot of that is related to diet. SNAP, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, is basically for that, for nutrition. Doesn't keep what Governor Braun is suggesting, doesn't keep people from using their own money to buy whatever junk food they want.
No, and those who make the point that when Michael Bloomberg wanted to ban big gulps in New York, Republicans went crazy and everybody walked around with big gulps at the 2016 RNC to prove how that wasn't going to happen. There's a difference between banning something and saying taxpayers aren't going to pay for it. What does SNAP cover and what does it not? Included on candy, cake, energy drinks, and pizza. Excluded vitamins, supplements, medicine, toilet paper, diapers. I was on the radio earlier with a woman in Chicago. Lisa Dent has a big show in Chicago, and she said, and feminine products as well. If it's not a time, are excluded. Is it time to reevaluate what SNAP pays for at all?
I think whenever you have these kinds of arguments, it's always a good thing to sit down together at the table, put the facts on the table, and discuss the avenue that should be taken based on the facts. If we just do it based on emotion, we'll never get anywhere.
Is there any evidence? You think about some of these states that want to do it, West Virginia, Arkansas, both of which have big obesity problems, and are some of the more poor states in America. I think about my home state of Missouri that's talked about it as well. Is there any evidence that by quote unquote banning this from SNAP or excluding government paying for it will actually make anybody thinner?
Well, there's evidence that if you don't eat a lot of junk food, you'll be thinner.
Yeah, true.
And so the question is, does allowing people to purchase these things with their SNAP benefits play into the whole situation that we're talking about? Obviously it does. So if we really want to have a healthy society, we really need to take this seriously. And again, I have to emphasize, junk food is junk food. That's why it's called junk food. That's not what SNAP was put there for.
Okay.
It was to make sure that people had nutritious meals and that they didn't starve.
You said that the MAHA movement was real, and that really has been born solely out of RFK Jr., who obviously identified a part of the American political electorate, then grafted himself onto the Donald Trump campaign, and his movement followed along. How do you think he's doing now as Secretary of HHS?
Well, he's shaking things up.
Is that a good thing?
I think that's good. I think he's making good progress. He's shown that he's open to discussion. He's not ironclad in one direction only. And I think that's a very good sign. But he wants to go based on principles of bringing health back to our society and restoring faith in our public health system, which was vastly destroyed with the COVID pandemic.
Do you have a good sense of Republican politics. It's one thing for governors to get on board with this because they kind of love the idea of following behind Donald Trump. And there is an argument that you can't really do anything with SNAP until you change it at the congressional level to ban some of these things. Is there the appetite in Congress, you think, to do that?
I don't think it's unanimous by any stretch of the imagination. And, perhaps there are some compromises that could be made. Maybe we could make requirements that things that are largely not healthy be labeled as such, and then let people have their choice.
Well, I guess, though, if you take it out of SNAP, some don't have that choice. That's kind of the point, is to not give them it. Dr. Carson, thank you, sir. As always, we appreciate it. Welcome back to the program. One thing you'll be talking about tomorrow when we come back. 250 years ago, war clouds hung over where we're sitting right now in Washington and across the Northeast as the beginnings of the revolution were starting to take place. Tomorrow, George will, on whether the founders, those who fought at Lexington and Concord, would be proud of what we have all created 250 years later. Dare I say, I think they would be proud of all of us.